What's up, guys? DrFeelGood here, back again with another video prescription. And today I want to talk about why third-party games, primarily those released by the big publishers such as Activision, EA, Ubisoft, etc., are so damn expensive. I mean, let's think about this. You hear it all the time. Well, from various news articles that, Mass Effect Andromeda was a $40 million game, that Destiny, over the course of 10 years, is going to be $500 million. Not 500,000, $500 million. And I know some of you thinking that, well, no, the first Destiny cost $500 million. No, actually only costs, I think, a little over $100 million. But the way it was is that the article stated that they planned on spending roughly $500 million on Destiny over the course of 10 years, which is still a lot of damn money. But moving on. But we hear about this all the time. I think Grand Theft Auto 5, which actually is a good game. I wouldn't say it's great, but it's good. I own the game on Xbox 360, but they paid roughly $250 million to make that game. We hear about other various games like Call of Duty, if you include the marketing costs and things like that, upwards to $100 million. We hear this all the time. Games that cost more than most movies to create. Why? Well, it didn't used to be this way. What caused these game production budgets to be blown out of proportion, even beyond the likes of Hollywood? It makes no sense. Well, I have a few theories. And I'm pretty sure those that have and exercise common sense will see these as facts. But my first theory is due to high fidelity graphics. See, these publishers, this industry, the ones at the top, have convinced the sheep, or should I say the narrow-minded gamer, that graphics are the most important thing when it comes to a game. So you hear all this talk about 1080p, and of course now you're hearing 4K, would it be, upscale 4K, running at 4K, things like that. But that costs money. See, it's not cheap to render these games, or should I say develop them at these insanely high resolutions. It's not. But that's what I believe one of the reasons are, that it's this constant push for high fidelity graphics. Okay? The next thing I believe is increasing the cost of games would be these bloated Hollywood cutscenes that we're seeing in games. Look at when they first revealed Uncharted 4. People were saying, look at all the pores on his skin, and you see the wrinkles and the details in his eyes and stuff like that. Stuff that you never see in the game. Why? It's stuff you don't pay attention to while you're playing. But yet, this is what we're clamoring for. It costs money to incorporate that type of detail into a game. It's not cheap. It's not. It takes layers upon layers upon layers of editing to get that done. Next reason is that we're choosing realism over art style. Listen, guys. Realism is cool. But gaming started out being based on a fantasy. There is nothing spectacular about seeing something that exists in real life reproduced digitally for the gaming world. It doesn't. I'm not impressed by seeing the Eiffel Tower in a video game. I'm not impressed by seeing New York City in a video game. I'm just not. I'm not. Even if I've never been there, I'm not impressed. Why should I be? But this type of realism, sometimes it requires licensing, especially when you want to use celebrities. And that is a great segue into the next reason why I think games are overpriced. It's due to the damn celebrity voiceovers. When you have people like Kevin Spacey, Angela Bassett, showing their faces in games with it, or lending their voices, they're not cheap. They're not cheap at all. Let's be honest. They are not cheap in the least. They may not be super expensive, but it does add to the cost when you have celebrity voiceovers, which is why Nintendo rarely ever does do celebrity voiceovers. But you see how things are nowadays. Almost every major third-party title or IP is using celebrity voiceovers. And it does add to a game. Don't get me wrong, it does. But it also adds to the budget. The next thing I think that makes games more expensive would be the need to release constant iterations every 1 to 2 years. Just look at Call of Duty. Look at Battlefield. They're already working on Destiny 2. Assassin's Creed. When your goal is to release an iteration every year because fans are not patient enough to wait, well, you know what happens with that, right? They dedicate pretty much all their man hours into making sure they can drop one every single year, even though they're using the same damn engine. When games become annual iterations, they're basically coming out the assembly line, which is another perfect segue into my next reason. Assembly line games require a lot of employees, a lot of programmers, a lot of developers. They are constantly working around the clock. Look at Activision. They have 2 to 3 different teams working on Call of Duty. They have, of course, Infinity Ward. They have Treyarch. I think Raven is helping as well in another studio. But yeah, all just to be able to push these games out to you every single year. Ubisoft has over 800 employees working for them, at least at the time of Assassin's Creed Unity, which still turned out to be a broken piece of shit game. But think about that. It doesn't make any sense, does it? And then another reason, when they're using these expensive game engines that are not built in-house. Like, for example, you always hear people talking about Unreal Engine, this DICE engine that. Now, I think DICE is part of EA, which is in-house, but even still, Unreal Engine, you have to pay licensing fees for that. You really do. You have to pay licensing fees. And honestly, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Like, Nintendo, more times than not, will develop their own engine, even if only used for one game. But it's done in-house. There's no confusion. There's no having to reach out to a third party. There's no learning how to use the engine. When you build something yourself, you're very familiar with it. It's that simple. And I just don't understand why the need to use these expensive engines. Now, I know it can be just expensive, if not more expensive, to build your own, but at least you're completely familiar with it 100%. But when you have to pay for licensing to use an engine, that adds to the cost. It really does. So all these gamers out there saying, clamoring to use Unreal Engine when they see these fans remake Nintendo games, it costs money, people. Because whoever's making this, they don't own that engine. All right, they don't. They're paying licensing fees for it. Next up is going to be advertising. Now, if you look at games like Destiny, Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Madden, 2K, they have extreme marketing. You see them everywhere. They're plastered all over the internet. They're plastered all over GameStop and even GameFly and other, video game retailers, things like that. They're paying a lot of money for this marketing. And don't get me wrong, it's smart when you want to either obtain or maintain mind share, but it's expensive. A commercial doesn't cost $1,000. It costs millions, if not tens of millions. There are games today that may only cost $20 or $30 million to make, but they're paying like $100 million in marketing costs. Now, you may be thinking that, well, that's smart. Not all the time. Not all the time. See, this is why I think this is one of the reasons that a lot of these developers and publishers are trying to sell us half a game and then for $60 full price, and then sell us portions of the game for half the price. It's like, no, why sell me half a game for $60 and then sell me 10% of it for $30 in a season pass? Because they're trying to recoup their costs as fast as possible. As fast as possible. That is why they're selling your ass incomplete games. And then 6 months before launch, hey, we have a season pass that's going to release the same day as a game. Season pass is costing $30, $40, $50. Makes you wonder. But all these things I just mentioned are things that are pushing the price of these games budgets through the roof. It makes no sense that Mass Effect Andromeda, $40 million, and it's still broken and has bugs. And yet I believe the entire budget for Deadpool the movie was roughly $30. But Deadpool made roughly $800 million, so that's a huge return on investment. Mass Effect, not so much. I'm just saying. We all know after the first month, those sales drop off tremendously. But anyway, let me guys know what you think in the comments, whether you agree or disagree. And tell me, what do you think pushes these budgets through the roof? Anyway, this is DrFeelGood, and as I always say, keep it gaming.